guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video is about shorts content. Now, I made a 3-part series talking about vampire shorts content, and then at the end of part 3, I said that I needed to take a break because I had to. However, this obsession with shorts content comes and goes. I first started watching this type of content, I think, in March. And I get really obsessed for a few weeks, and then a few months go by, and then I get really obsessed, and then months go by, and then you get the point. So I first stuck to just vampire content, because obviously that's my favorite type of content. However, I noticed that when it comes to shorts content, there's many genres, but a big genre in the shorts content is werewolf content. Now, obviously, I am not a giant werewolf fan. Vampires are my specialty. Though one of my favorite TV shows is Teen Wolf. More so, it's nostalgic for me, and I was a teen when I first found it, and it's awesome. But today I'm going to be talking about the werewolf content within shorts. Specifically, the lore. Because I've seen so many of these that there's like lore that connects a few of them, and they have very similar aspects. So I thought I would go over some of the similarities between them so you don't have to watch them, because it's a roller coaster. To start off, there is a hierarchy within these wolf universes. Now, a lot of people know about the Alpha, Beta, and Omega, which is something that is very outdated. I don't even think it's scientifically proven to be true when it comes to wolf packs anymore. But when it comes to werewolf content, they love using those words. There are alphas. They are the leaders of the pack, usually strong, gruff men. These alphas have a mate, usually known as a Luna. They are the queen of the pack, so king and queen. Then, beneath them, is the betas. Betas are second in command. Most of these dramas have about 1 or 2 betas. Some have more, but usually it's about 1 second in command wolf, who the king trusts. There's the rest of the wolves in the pack, which I don't really think they have names. I think they're just wolves. Then there is the lone wolf / rogue, which are usually omegas. But in this universe, they usually call them rogues rather than using the word omega. They're wolves without a pack. Within these werewolves, there are wolves known as healers. I've heard it as healer or lunar healer. They are werewolves who can heal people. Usually it's shown with like light shooting out of their hands, and they can heal other people's wounds. There's one where she heals people, but it really tires her out, and she usually passes out from healing too much. There's also one I saw where she takes the pain into herself. So she heals someone, and then let's say they got cut on the arm, the cut appears on her, which I thought was very interesting. That's the only version I've seen of that. I've seen quite a few werewolf healers, but that version I have not, and that was pretty cool. Then there is the Alpha King. Each pack has an Alpha, Beta, and the rest of the wolves. Alpha King is kind of like the king over all of the wolves. So he's up here, and then there's each pack. He has his own pack as well, but he's like the leader of all the packs. Within this system of packs, there are wolf courts. They are mentioned quite a few times when someone breaks the law, which they do have their own rules. They have their own like judicial system and government and whatever. Each pack has an alpha, and they usually deal with pack matters. If it gets too extreme, it goes to the Alpha King. And then if it's even worse, they're sent to the werewolf, judges, trials. I've only seen these trials, I think, once. Usually they mention it, and then the wolf is carried off, and we never really see it again. But it is mentioned that they have this. Now, the basic history within these wolf universes is that you get your wolf at 18 years old. So you are human, basically, until you hit 18. When you turn 18, you get your wolf. It's kind of like it just appears. But until you're 18, you don't have one. Now, not every 18-year-old gets a wolf. Some of them are wolfless, which means they just don't have one. But that's usually their 18th birthday is when it hits. Each werewolf can speak to their wolf telepathically and through mirrors. So they can hear the wolf's voice in their head and can speak to them, and other people cannot hear this conversation. However, in a few dramas that I've seen, when a werewolf is talking to their wolf, usually through mirrors, other people can see and hear them. Which, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. I feel like it should just be a them connection, but they do notice it and they hear them. The wolf is a separate entity. It's not a human becoming a wolf. It is a human and a wolf in the same body. They can speak to one another, as I said, telepathically or through mirrors. They are two separate people, technically. They can see their wolf, talk to their wolf, and change into their wolf, but they are two separate beings. It is also known that not everyone gets a wolf. It's like gifted to them by the moon goddess. The moon goddess is their god. She bestows wolves upon people. She deals with fate. She deals with mates. She can change people's fate. She has been shown a few times, usually in like Greek goddess attire. She is their god. So instead of saying, oh my god, they say, oh my goddess, which is kind of interesting. Supposedly, these wolves can be handed down to them. In one drama I saw, it was actually like handed down generationally, this wolf, which I've never seen that before. Usually they're just gifted a wolf. They all have their own name, their own personality. They are their own thing. They're just like in the same body. Werewolves can lose their wolf. Most times it's trauma-based. Something really bad happens and their wolf just disappears. One drama I saw, she lost her entire family and lost her wolf for 7 years. Others, they're abused as a child and the wolf never shows up. But they can lose their wolf due to other circumstances. White wolves are powerful leaders and very rare. They're like, historically powerful beings. And 9 times out of 10, the girl who was wolfless turns out to be a white wolf. But they are supposedly very rare. Werewolves are enemies with vampires and witches. The vampire dramas show a little bit of werewolf stuff. Most of the werewolf dramas mention vampires, but they aren't actually shown. There are a few where the vampires are brought up and actually in the drama, but they don't have a big part to play. Witches are also part of these werewolf dramas, and they usually don't get along very well. Humans, they're not really like enemies of humans. They just think humans are inferior, weak. At least the mean girls think that. Now to powers and weaknesses. The powers are akin to most werewolf content. They're super strong, they're super fast, their senses are heightened. They can transform into a wolf at any time, but on full moons, it's harder for them to control themselves. I've seen some dramas where they turn into a full wolf. I've also seen dramas where their eyes light up and they just grow claws, kind of like Teen Wolf. So it changes. There's a spectrum. But they can turn whenever they want, and they can half turn, like just have their claws get long and stuff like that. Now, I've seen many eye colors from green to blue to yellow. Supposedly, in a few dramas, red eyes are rare, but I've also seen dramas where the alphas have red eyes. And in Teen Wolf, to go back to that, alphas have red eyes, betas have yellow eyes, and omegas have blue eyes. So it's kind of similar to that. I've seen where most alphas have red or yellow eyes. Betas, you don't see their eyes as much because they don't transform as much as the alpha does. But omegas have seen their eyes blue and green. So I don't know if there's anything to that, but that's just kind of how it is. There's also this thing that happens when they get super angry sometimes where their eyes light up and then their wolf appears behind them in mist. I believe everyone else can see this. It's like their wolf coming out of their body in like intimidation. Being like, rah. When it comes to weaknesses, they are better than humans, but they're still weak to human weapons. I've seen them get shot, stabbed, attacked. It hurts them. They heal faster, which is another strength of theirs. They do heal faster than humans, but they can still get weakened by human weapons. Also, big ones are silver and wolfsbane. Wolfsbane is poison. Silver kills them. Now, I have seen that normal werewolves, this stuff kills them, but alphas are stronger, so it doesn't usually kill them. Like, it weakens them pretty badly, but most of them have survived being poisoned and stabbed by silver, which I feel like is just like, you're cheating. Like, I feel like just because they're an alpha, that should still hurt them. Now, obviously, they are in pain, but they don't die. Some of them get real close, but silver and wolfsbane are like big ones. They love to poison people with wolfsbane. It's like their favorite thing to do. Now, to mates. In this universe of wolf content, soulmates are a big thing. A werewolf can sense their mate at 18 years old, so when they get their wolf usually is like, our mate is blah, blah, blah. What? Oh my god. If they do not have a wolf, they usually don't know their mate. It's kind of like comes with the territory. It is known that you get one mate in your existence. However, 9 times out of 10, this rule is thrown out the window because the wolf who had a mate gets another one. Sometimes they have 2 at the same time. Sometimes one mate rejects them and suddenly they have another one 5 seconds later. So they kind of take this rule and ignore it, even though it's stated multiple times you get one mate, and then they just backtrack on that and be like, what? One mate? Nah. So I don't know what the hell that is, but that is common that they go back on that rule. When it comes to having a mate, there is a thing known as the mate bond. When they touch one another, this light rope wraps around their hands and around their bodies, connecting them. They can both see it, and I thought at first that they were the only ones who could see it, but I realized watching more of this content that other people can see it too. So it's actually visually like everyone can see this bond. And it wraps around them both, connecting them. Due to this, they can feel each other's pain, so if one of them is getting hurt, the other one can sense it and find them. They can always find one another, so if one of them is in trouble, the other one can find them. 9 times out of 10, it's the alpha trying to find their Luna. However, it has happened the other way. They can also heal each other. I've seen it a few times where their tears heal, the other, their touch heals, just being near them heals. I've also seen that if they lick the wounds, it heals. That one's a little off, but basically they can heal one another. They can also smell each other's scent from like a mile away. They can instantly go, my mate, which has happened a few times and is very funny when it does because they like stop what they're doing and go, my mate. They can sense one another through smell. They can track them through this. It is recognition, and usually it has some sensual benefits. They smell one another and they get worked out. So, but there's a pheromone that their mate gives off that they can sense. A few of these dramas, a wolf is injured to the point they can't smell this, so they can't sense their mate. But most werewolves have this ability where they can, like, they know 100% this is my mate. I know it's mine. Werewolves can reject their mate. There usually is a process to this, though I have seen it shortened in a few dramas. They usually raise their hand, maybe place one over their heart, and go, I, blah, 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 reject you, blah, 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 as my mate. The other wolf can either accept or reject their rejection. If they accept the rejection, the mate bond light string will snap, and it'll feel like they got stabbed in the heart, like a real hard heartache, like it hurts physically. You can only have one mate. Most of these dramas don't go into the idea of having more than one, but I did watch one where he tried to have 2 mates and it was against the law, and he could actually undo the marking, which I didn't know you could do, but supposedly he can undo the marking process and it almost kills him, but he can do it. Speaking of marking, there's a thing known as basically claiming your mate. It involves biting. Usually, 9 times out of 10, it happens in the heat of passion, where the alpha will bite their Luna and claim them as theirs. It's kind of like a she's mine, claiming my territory sort of thing. I have also seen where there's an actual ceremony for this, where the alpha bites the Luna in front of other people, which I feel like should be an intimate moment not surrounded by other people, but I have seen it happen. So, depending on what drama you're watching, it changes. But marking is a big thing. It's basically claiming the other as theirs. When it comes to these dramas, there are common tropes that they love to redo over and over and over and over again. One of the iconic storylines that they love to do is that a girl, sometimes she's wolfless, sometimes she just hasn't turned 18 yet, but she, 9 times out of 10, is an orphan for some reason. But she walks in on her mate, or her boyfriend, or her husband, cheating on her, usually with her best friend, or a family member, or someone she knows. He treats her like crap, rejects her, throws her to the ground, and then someone else comes in the fray. Either an uncle, or a brother, or a cousin, or just a visiting alpha, who senses her and realizes she's my mate. Instantly, almost to the T after she gets rejected, she has another mate. Which I feel like is just a little too quick. So she is rejected by her first mate because he's a cheater and an asshole, and then she finds a new mate who is always much better. ends up with the original mate, the cheater, becoming super jealous and wanting to have her back. She does not want him because he sucks. He usually gets violent and abusive and is like, you're mine, you know, you were my mate, blah, 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 blah. Usually ends with him getting his ass beat by the new mate because he deserved it. And in the end, she is with her new mate and they live happily ever after. Another common trope within these is that the main character, who's usually a girl, is wolfless, whether it's because she lost it due to trauma, was born like that, hasn't received her wolf, it just never showed up. She has no wolf. And she's a servant, or lowly, or something, and Alpha finds her and falls in love with her. And he doesn't care that she's wolfless. He loves her anyway. And sometimes they think that she's human. Not just wolfless, just a human. And then you find out later on that she is a werewolf. She just never knew it. And the wolf usually wakes itself up when he gets hurt, or something happens where trauma is involved and she has to fight back, or she's super happy and the wolf just appears. The wolf usually just shows up most of the time. Anyone who starts out at the beginning of the drama being wolfless or assumed to be human, by the end they have a wolf. They are definitely not human. They are always a werewolf. Always. Another one which bothers me to no end is pregnant after a one-night stand. This is a common trope even throughout their other types of dramas that aren't werewolf related. They have sex one time and she is pregnant. She has a kid. They don't meet up again for another 6 or 7 years. 7 years is their favorite. And he comes back into her life. She tries to hide the fact that this is his kid, but in the end he finds out that it's his kid. He loves her regardless, and the kid, and they live happily ever after. This happens quite a bit. She tries to hide it from him. Sometimes she doesn't know he's the dad, but a lot of times she does know he's the dad and tries to hide it from him because she's worried that he won't accept him or whatever. But the kid always knows it's their dad. Sometimes she tells him and he goes to find his dad. Other times he just knows it's his dad and he just runs up to him and goes, "Daddy, save mommy!" How do you know it's your dad? Unless she's told you. That's a little weird. Senses my papa. But like, it's a common thing. They have sex one time and pregnant. They really need to work on contraceptives or something because I feel like this just happens too much. Another common one throughout most media is enemies to lovers. Maybe they're alphas from rival packs, or one's a king, cruel king, and one's a servant, and they hate each other, but eventually they grow to love each other. Enemies to lovers is a common trope throughout all media, and it happens in this too. Also, there's a common trope where the main character is an orphan, mistreated, left alone, doesn't know her family. In the end, she finds out her dad or her mom or her family are alphas, they're important, they're rich. You know, she finds out she has a family that's been looking for her, she was kidnapped or got lost or whatever. But 9 times out of 10, she's not just a nobody, she is important. You find out near the end that she's like this powerful heiress or something. Very common. Now, obviously, there are more tropes throughout this content if I really sat down and thought of every single trope they use, but those are definitely the most common. The first trope that I mentioned is literally the most common trope I've ever seen. It is repeatedly used throughout many of them. A poor girl falls in love with a powerful alpha. And I understand that a lot of people like this content. Don't get me wrong. It's the type of content that draws you in where you kind of want to know what happens. It is crappy. Some of the actors are not good. Some of the scripts, not good. The special effects is the worst thing I have probably ever seen. I've never seen a wolf animation in any of these that was good. However, the eyes lighting up, they don't usually use contacts. They use they just, super fix the eyes onto the eyes. Those actually look pretty good because usually they're just lit up. That I've seen pretty good. But when it comes to the actual wolf animation, not good. It's bad. I've never seen one where I was like, that was pretty good. I've seen some that are really, really bad. Whoever's doing that really needs to work on their animation skills. Or better yet, just have the wolf have claws, fangs, contacts. That would be the easiest way to fix this, but they don't. A lot of this content, I think, works for people because most of the time it's a girl down on her luck treated like garbage, and her Prince Charming comes and saves her. He's a gruff, manly man who loves her, protects her. You know, don't touch my mate. They're mine. You know, kind of a little possessive, but most of the time it's not to the point of being scary. It's more of like, she is mine. I will protect her with my life, which I know a lot of people enjoy. Who doesn't want to be protected? And common things that happen throughout these is the mean girls, as I mentioned, and they love to slap people. Like, the amount of people that get slapped in these is crazy. They lift their hand and they'll bam! And a lot of times they will slap the main character, maybe twice, but by the time they get to the third one, their alpha mate appears and grabs their hand and stops them. Slapping is the most common attack method. But there's always a mean girl who wants to be with the alpha, who can't believe he chose this bitch, and tries to ruin her life with rumors, and kidnapping, and poisoning, and drugging. It's insane the amount of times that these main characters are kidnapped. They're kidnapped at least once, if not twice, sometimes even more times, in the drama itself. It's actually crazy. But there's just something about it that I enjoy. It's like the people who watch reality television, you know, who just like to watch trashy TV because it's entertaining. That's my thing. Now, obviously, I do prefer the vampire dramas over the werewolf ones, but I've seen enough werewolf ones to know that sometimes they're just like, you just want to see what happens. They're entertaining. My favorite subgenre of this werewolf content is when a vampire and a werewolf fall in love with each other, which is more rare than you would think. You would think that doing this kind of content, there would be more vampire content. There really isn't. Now, obviously, I've done a 3-part series and talked about 6 dramas per one, so that's about 18 so far. However, werewolf content, there's like 100. There's so many, and there's so many different apps, and it's actually crazy. But the werewolf-vampire storyline, I think, needs to come more into fruition. I love star-crossed lovers, and I love enemies to lovers, and a vampire and werewolf are the perfect combo for that. I have only seen two of those that I actually enjoyed. There was Claimed by the Alpha I Hate, where the main character is a vampire-werewolf hybrid. She doesn't find out until maybe, I think, 17 episodes into the show. And she falls in love with a werewolf. And he hates vampires. They killed his entire family, but he falls in love with her. Then you have A Vampire in the Alpha's Den, which actually was not part of a video. That is where a vampire loses her whole family, but she is in love with an alpha. They love one another. He doesn't care that she's a vampire. She actually loves him and he loves her. And if I do a part 4 to my vampire shorts content, that one will be in it. So if I could have more werewolf, vampire, star-crossed lovers, enemies to lovers situation, that would be fantastic. Give me some more of them, please. But this werewolf content is not always good. The script's bad, the acting's bad, but sometimes there are diamonds in the rough. There are actors throughout these dramas that I actually think should be doing better things than this. They are quite good, given the script that they are given. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you would like a part 2, I can. I talked about a lot of the lore in this video, but if I find any more, I could compile another script for another video. I also could talk about specific werewolf dramas. I kind of just did an overall basis of the stuff that I noticed throughout many dramas, but I could talk about specific ones, kind of like how I did with the vampire shorts content, if you would want to see that. Werewolf content is usually not my thing, but there's just something about this stuff that I like. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be back again next week with another one. See you later.